What's up guys, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one you are not going to want to miss because we are getting into some things I've never talked about our debt-free journey, giving you an update, answering your questions. It's going to be a good one. So I'm excited, I'm a little nervous, but let's get into it. I posted a video just about a year ago that we are debt-free and that I put in parentheses kind of. And I knew when I posted that video it might cause some confusion, but I truly believed at that point that we were going to be debt-free in the near future. We had sold our home, we had a bunch of cash. I didn't think we were going to buy a house for a while, and I thought we were going to end up just making a lump sum payment and paying it off like maybe 6 months to a year after I posted that video. But here we are a year later, still in debt. So I'm going to go through a brief history of our debt-free journey, tell you some stuff along the way, and catch you up to where we are today. All right, first of all, let's go all the way back to 2019. In May of 2019, I had my first daughter. I became a mom for the first time, and I was on maternity leave, absolutely freaking out, having a meltdown about money. We were in so much debt. I'll show you the spreadsheet in just a second. We were in so much debt. At that point, I think it was around $375,000 of debt, and that was not including our mortgage. I can't even believe that number. So at that point, I was just like beside myself, thinking I have this beautiful, precious little baby, and we are just like on the cusp of financial ruin. And I didn't want to live that way anymore. So I started listening to a ton of financial content. And the first one, the main one that I came across, and this is something that I've never really talked about, not really, I've never talked about before. First one I came across, I'm sure you can guess, is Dave Ramsey. He's everywhere. He's just very prolific in the debt payoff space. I started listening to his podcast a lot, among other creators, but mostly him. And in his videos, on more than one occasion, when he was talking to people who had student loans, he told them that student loan forgiveness is a scam. It's never going to happen, and you got duped. And I'm not talking about like the government today trying to cancel student loans. I'm talking about the forgiveness programs that were written into the contracts that I signed when I took out my student loans, saying that if you pay your payment for 20 years on this certain repayment plan, then your loans will be forgiven after the 20th year. And I heard him say that over and over to people, that this forgiveness after 20 years is not going to happen. And that is something I had been banking on to have in my back pocket of like, okay, we can at least pay off our credit cards, pay off our car debt, and, you know, get rid of everything but our student loans, and then have our student loans for the next, at that point, it would have been like another 12 years. And after I started hearing him say that this forgiveness is a scam over and over and over, I freaked out. And I was like, you know what? I don't know that he's 100% right, but he's freaked me out enough that I just want to get these student loans paid off. So I refinanced my husband's and my federal student loans into private student loans to get a lower interest rate, so we could actually have some of our payment going towards the principal and not just interest, because the way they were structured as federal loans, the payments, basically everything was going towards interest, plus they were accruing more interest on top of that. So our student loans were getting bigger every single month for the past like 8 years. I started out with, I want to say, $130,000 of student loans, and it went up to like 170. Nope, they went up to 210. So they gained, I mean, this is how freaked out I was. I took out $130,000 of loans for a degree I never wanted, right? So now I have this degree. I hate the profession. I don't want to do it. I didn't do it for 3 years. I ended up going to rehab with a drug problem. That's how distraught I was in life over this degree and this debt, among other things that were going on in my life. But get out of rehab, work as a bartender for 3 years, and then finally I'm like, okay, I have to tackle our finances, and work really hard at it for a number of years. Make little to no progress because life is so expensive with our student loan debt and our car loans, and I was spending out of control. Anyway, I'm getting a little off track. This is supposed to be the short version of the story. So it started out at $130,000, had gone up to $210,000 by the time I refinanced. So I was sufficiently freaked out that my loans had gone up by $80,000, and at the same time being told that this forgiveness is a scam, thinking these things were just going to grow and I was never going to get out of student loan debt. So I refinanced our student loans. I regret that decision so fucking much. Like, I'm gonna try not to cry talking about it, but that was such a mistake. Because although it may have been stressful to wait for the government to follow through on their promise, these forgiveness programs, like, the government is legally bound to follow them. And I feel like at least I wish I had understood what my options were more before making such a big decision. Because I refinanced, what was it, like over $300,000 of debt on little to no information and mostly fear. And I just wish I had made a more educated decision. So this is why I've over the years talked about this company, Student Loan Planner. They basically, you can pay them a flat fee for a consult. They'll look at all your loans, your income, your life goals, and they'll give you all the options and tell you what they think is best for you and your situation, which repayment plan you should be on, what your options are, what the cost to you would be, what would be the cheapest, how to save the most money, how to minimize your student loan payment. So I'll link them below if you want to check them out. If you have federal student loans or private student loans, if you have student loans that are like keeping you up at night, just arm yourself with information. It's worth the few $100s to pay them. If I had known they existed back then, I would have 1,000% spent the $400 or whatever it is to have them consult before I made this huge financial decision. Anyway, what's done was done. There's no unrefinancing those loans. That refinance went through in January of 2020. So less than 2 months later, we all know what happened. Student loan payments got paused for years anyway. I couldn't have predicted that. Nobody could have. But again, it was just a further blow as I realized that I had made a mistake to refinance these student loans. But at that point, I was like, what's done is done. Let's dive all in and just try to get all of our debt paid off now, because now we are on the hook for every single dollar of this. So my husband and I hustled at that time. He was working. He had graduated in 2017, so he was a few years into his career doing product marketing at a tech company. I was working as an attorney at a law firm, and we just pushed and paid off debt as much as we could for a few years. I strongly disliked being an attorney from the beginning. I would say there's parts of it that I did enjoy, but overall it was just not the right fit for me, and I didn't go to law school for the right reasons. And so a year into the pandemic, it just got to be too much, and we had paid off enough debt. We were in a position where I felt like I could leave my career, I could make money part-time doing YouTube and be home with my daughter, and my husband could keep working and growing in his career, and we could still make progress on our finances. So that's what we did in June of 2021. So this was like a year and a half into our debt-free journey. I quit my job. And that I have no regrets about. It's been almost 3 years now, and being home with my older daughter and now my 2 daughters has just been such a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad I did it. It did set us back financially though. Like, our debt payoff way slowed down from that point forward, but I was okay with it at that point. It was worth it because I know these years with my kids being little are so precious and so few that it was worth it to take that step back from making fast progress and just continue to make progress, but much slower. And then something big happened about a year later in June of 2022. And what I shared with you guys at that point is that we got a big financial windfall, and basically every dollar of that went to pay off my student loan debt. So at that point, my student loans were at about $177,000. My student loans started out at $210,000. We had paid them down to $177,000, and then a financial windfall happened, and we were able to wipe out the balance of my student loans. I have not shared what the source of that money was. I'm not going to share that, so you can speculate, whatever. At that point, it left us with only $80,000 of debt left, and at that point, I reconfigured our debt payoff spreadsheet. So it took out that $177,000 balance of my student loan from our debt-free journey. So every time I talk about our debt-free journey from that point forward, I'm talking about the money that my husband and I have paid off through earnings we've earned ourselves, not that financial windfall. So that's a point of confusion too, is whenever I mention how much we've paid off, some people comment, but you don't mention, the financial windfall you got. That's because those dollars are not included when I talk about the numbers. I took it out because I didn't think it was fair to say, and in 2022, we paid off $200,000 when only $30,000 of it was us, and the other 170 something thousand was not from our direct income. All right, so that's one point of confusion I wanted to make sure to clear up for anyone who's been watching and just kind of got confused, or anybody new here. From there, like I said, we just had my husband's student loan left. And at that point, we started thinking about the fact that we wanted to move. At that point, we had about 2 years till my oldest started kindergarten, and We knew we didn't want to stay where we were for her to start school, and we kind of wanted to figure out where we were going to settle down before that happened so we didn't have to switch her schools if possible. So in spring of 2023, we put our condo on the market and sold it, and then moved into an apartment. At that point, we had cash from the sale of our home that was equal to more than the balance we had left on our student loans. So I'm just going off of memory, but we had something to the effect of $160,000 or so from the sale of our home, and our student loan balance at that point was only like $70,000. So we had more than enough cash to pay off my husband's student loan, and that is when I made our debt-free video after we closed in May of 2023 saying we're debt-free, kind of, because we had way more cash than we needed to pay off my husband's student loan. But we decided to hold off because we were moving into an apartment with our family of 4, and we didn't know how we would like apartment life. We were moving to a new town. We didn't know how we would like being in that town, and we just wanted to keep our options open. I learned from my mistake of freaking out and making an irreversible decision with the refinance of our student loans, just to not like make such an emotional, impulsive decision at that point and leave things open. But when we did move into the apartment, I was convinced we were gonna be there for like 3+ years. I thought we were gonna like it. I thought we were gonna like the break from home ownership. I thought it was not gonna be that big a deal to be in an apartment, and that we were gonna need that time to figure out where we wanted to settle down roots anyway, and we still had about a year before my daughter started kindergarten, so we had time. Unfortunately, that's not how it worked out. There was a number of reasons that we didn't like apartment living, and now that we're like further out from it, there was just a lot of drug activity at that complex. Like, being a former drug user and drug addict, I know what that looks like. I know what people look like when they're on drugs and when they are selling drugs, and I saw a lot of that at that complex. And that was just one of the issues. There were other issues, but that was the main one that just made us not feel safe for having our little babies at that apartment. Like, if it was just me and my husband, I feel like we could have been fine dealing with that for longer. It would have been like not ideal, but like it wasn't like there were violent events, but well, there was one missing person, but she ended up turning up fine. But anyway, that's a separate story. But anyway, it was not the vibe. It was not the vibe we were looking for our family to be there for an extended period of time. So thankfully, I had not rushed to pay off our student loan debt and kept that cash, which allowed us the option to have enough money to put a down payment and have a housing payment that we could afford, barely, but afford to be in a house, which is where we are now. So I hope that clears it up, because again, I feel like a lot of people are confused on the timeline of things, where the money came from at different points, what happened. So let me give you an update and show you where we are now with our debt payoff. All right, so this is my debt payoff tracking spreadsheet. You can see back here in January of 2020, we had 1 credit card, 2 credit cards, a car loan, my husband's undergrad student loans, a credit card consolidation loan that was at 11.87%, and 2 massive student loans, all adding up to $369,673. Later, I added in our home equity line of credit to this debt payoff, which put the starting total up to $392,000. But when I first started, I wasn't counting the home equity line of credit, and so it was at $369,000. In the first year, we were able to make $79,000 of payments, pay off $62,000 of debt, and $16,725 went towards interest. That left us after year 1 with a total debt left to pay of $307,369. I started sharing debt payoff updates in around September of 2020, so some of this was done before I started sharing online, but every month after that until about May of last year, I shared an update every single month telling you guys what we were paying off. All right, moving on to year 2, you can see I added in the home equity line of credit. So our original total went up to $392,411, which is fucking insane. Almost $400,000 of debt, not including our mortgage. I mean, I could not sleep. Like, ugh. Okay. In year 2, which this was when I quit my job around June of 2021, we paid $68,611 of payments. We paid off $58,935 of debt and paid $9,676 of interest. At this point, we had paid off about 31% of our debt. All right, so year 3, we started out with $270,000 left to pay, and we got to June of 2022 when that financial windfall happened. So at that point, I readjusted our debt payoff and updated the spreadsheet to take out my student loan out of the running, except for the amount that we had actually paid before that financial windfall. So in June 2022, all we had left to pay was $81,982 of debt. For payments that year, we paid $21,168. We paid off $16,756 of debt and paid $4,412 in interest. So you can see the first 2 years we paid like $70,000 towards debt payments, and the third year we paid only $21,000. And that's because 2022 was the first full year that I was not working in my job. And also I had a baby, and so life was expensive and hectic, and I wasn't able to put as much time into my business and all that stuff. So at the end of year 3, we counted ourselves as having paid off $138,407 and had $76,256 left to pay. I continued making debt payoff updates in year 4 up until about May, like I said. So I will let you know how the rest of 2023 went, because I haven't shared these numbers with you yet. So like I said, at the beginning of 2023, we had a balance of $76,256. We did pay a little bit of extra payments at the beginning of 2023, but then we stopped and we just paid the minimum payment. So you can see here, like we paid $1,400 in January, $1,100 in February, about $1,000 in March, and then $850 in April, and then just started paying the minimum payment of $830 after that. The other reason why we've been paying the minimum payment is just because our interest rate on that loan is 2.8%. Part of the reason I did refinance is because our interest rates on our student loans were 7 to 8%. And I was able to get them down to under 3%. So again, we were able to pay so much more towards principal with the amount of our payments they were paying. So we do have a 2.8% interest rate on my husband's student loan. So year 4, because we stopped making extra payments and we were just paying the minimum, we paid even less towards debt, but still made progress on debt payoff. We paid $11,180, $9,200 went towards principal, and $1,979 went towards interest. So if you remember, we started out the first year about $16,000, I think it was. Let's see. Yeah, $16,725 went towards interest. And then by year 4, we had less than $2,000 going towards interest for the whole year. So big glow up on the interest. And so at the end of year 4, our balance was $67,055. So going from $392,000, or if you want to count it, $214,000 if you're not counting that windfall, down to $67,000 still is a huge accomplishment. And even though I have regrets of how I went about starting the step-free journey, where we're at now, I'm super happy with. And that was just the end of 2023. Let's take a look at 2024, which is debt payoff year 5 for us, which was really originally the year I hoped we'd become debt-free. I hoped that we could pay off all our debt in 5 years. I didn't know how we were gonna make that happen, but I hoped we could somehow make it happen. 5 years seemed like a reasonable time to sacrifice everything for debt payoff alone. And we're not gonna hit it, but we got a lot closer than I ever dreamed we would. My daughter is starting kindergarten this September, so like 5 months from now, and I just had this dream that by the time my daughter started school, we would be done with paying off our school. So we're not gonna hit it, but also I don't stay up at night like having nightmares about our student loan debt anymore. So far this year, we've just been paying the minimum payment. So as of March of 2024, our balance was $65,703. We paid the minimum payment. At this point, $679 went towards principal and only $151 went towards interest, which left us with a balance at the end of March or on April 1st of $65,024. So we're at around $65,000 of debt. And as of April 1st, we were at $149,639 of debt paid off. Again, that is not including the financial windfall. This is just debt we've paid off between my husband and my income. Okay, so I'm actually gonna put in the balance for May, and because we actually already made our April payment. So technically we have actually hit that $150,000 of debt paid off. So one of the things I've talked about for years is when you are on a long debt-free journey, it is so important to celebrate the milestones along the way, because especially if you have like one large debt, it's not like you get to celebrate a bunch of times paying off like small debts. It's just this one large balance that you keep throwing money at. And so celebrating hitting milestones is super important to keep you motivated. So we hit several milestones with this last payment. One is $150,000 of debt paid off. 2, we are under $65,000 of debt left to pay. And 3, we have paid off 70% of our debt and only have 30% left to pay. This accomplishment is something I could only have dreamed of. And I did. I dreamt of it, but I didn't truly believe that we were going to pay down our debt. I was just like, let me just pretend that I'm someone that can pay down a lot of debt and keep pretending until maybe I turn into that person. And the way I'm able to approach money, manage money, emotionally deal with decisions about money is so much better than I could have 5 years ago when I started like listening to Dave Ramsey religiously and getting to a really fearful place about money. And by the way, just a cautionary tale about Dave Ramsey. In my career as an attorney, I did a lot of estate planning that involved some knowledge about taxes. And there were 2 occasions when I was listening to Dave Ramsey's podcast. And this was before I decided to listen to him and refinance our student loans. So these are like red flags I should have paid attention to. But he gave wrong information about how gift taxes work and inheritance taxes work. He was saying, oh, you're gonna owe a bunch of money when you inherit that money with taxes and blah, blah, blah. And that's not necessarily true. When you inherit money in a lot of states and in a lot of forms of inheritance, there is no tax, or if there's a tax, it's a tax on the estate, not a tax on the inheritance. And it just, the way he was talking about it, I could tell he didn't know what he was talking about. Like that he was just straight up wrong, because I dealt with this every single day in my job when I was handling people's estates as an estate planning attorney. And I should have realized at that point that if he was wrong about something that complicated, that when it came to student loans, which is also very complicated, maybe he didn't know the whole story there either, and I shouldn't be listening to him. So if you notice red flags when you're listening to somebody talking about something important, but the other stuff they're saying makes sense, don't ignore those red flags. You know, in life, I try not to have regrets, and I do feel like things happen for a reason, and I can't quite see the reason why our finances turned out the way they did and why I made the decision I made to refinance our student loan debt and how that's for the best, but maybe it's because it started me sharing all this in a way I wouldn't have shared it, and this job on YouTube is going to turn into something greater and more impactful. I mean, I already know it's impacted so many lives in a positive way because I get amazing messages from you guys all the time, just saying the sweetest, just most happy things about how my sharing my story and the information that I've shared has helped you in your own financial life. So that is definitely like my favorite silver lining of having refinanced our student loan debt and then started sharing everything online. But I think I won't know until this is more in the rear view mirror for us that we have been debt free and that we're investing 15, 20, 25% of our income every single month to retirement before I can really look back and reflect and think about why this ended up being for the best. By the way, on that note, if you like this debt payoff spreadsheet that I showed you, you can get it for yourself. It'll be linked in the video description. It's an instant download to Google Sheets and comes with a detailed video tutorial. Also, if you want to work with me one-on-one to set up a debt payoff plan, work on budgeting, or any other financial questions you have, you can find the link to sign up for my coaching program in the video description as well. Okay, I asked you guys if you had any questions you want me to answer in my debt payoff update. So I am going to pull those up now and then we will wrap up this video because it is very long. Do you have any specific 5-year, 10-year, etc. long-term goals? Yeah, we definitely have long-term goals. At this point with our student loan debt, I would love to say that we're going to pay it off early. Right now there's about 7 years left on that loan, so we'll pay off like a little under $10,000 a year for the next 7 years to get that $65,000 balance paid off if we just pay the minimum payment. I would like to not have that loan for another 7 years, but it's such a low interest rate that I don't know that it makes sense now that we're in our late 30s to throw money towards a low interest rate debt versus invest, which we can make a return of like 3 times that on our money. I think we need to be really smart and strategic with our money now that I am going to be 37 this month and I'm not 27. I don't have as much of a margin of error to make financial mistakes as I did in my 20s. My husband, what he does for work is he works in startups. So he collects stock options along the way, and what that means is basically he's a partial owner of the companies that he works for, and if they IPO or have a liquidity event in the future, we could overnight gain a bunch of money, which we hope will happen. So the only caveat I have to are we going to pay off our student loan debt early is if we get a big influx of cash from my husband's ownership in these companies, then I can see us saying, okay, there's only $50,000 left on this debt. Let's just boom, pay it off and be done with it. But it would have to be a big influx of cash. Like that would have to be a very small portion of what we got from the stock options for us to go ahead and do that. And I'm not talking about like options trading or like anything like that. I'm talking about when he worked for the companies, they granted him an ownership piece, and at some point in the future, if the company succeeds in a big way, he will cash out on that ownership piece. So that's my, I guess goal for debt payoff is just to pay off our debt. Also not acquire any new debt. So no credit card debt, no car loans, no home equity line of credit for renovations. Like I hope we never take out another dollar of debt. The only debt we might take out is if we refinance our mortgage into a lower interest rate mortgage, we would take out a new mortgage, but it wouldn't be for any larger amount. So I hope we never have to take out debt again for anything. I'd love to pay for cash for cars. Yeah, that would be my long-term goal for debt. For investing, I posted a video a while back, but we have a goal of hitting at least $5 million by the time we are 65, 67 years old, and ideally closer to 10 million, but minimum of 5 million. So I'm gonna post a retirement savings, investing, financial independence update, because I'm not gonna do like net worth updates anymore, I don't think, but I'm gonna post like a financial independence update and let you guys know where we're at for our retirement investing, what that amount is projected to be when we're 65 years old, and how much further we have to go to get to our financial independence number. So stay tuned for that. And other than that, I just want to be healthy and happy and enjoy my life with my family. And that's it. I've got simple goals. I'd like to plant some flowers in my backyard and maybe take a vacation to somewhere sunny like once a year. That's pretty much it. So one of the questions I've already answered, but I just want to address this directly. Have you ever been tempted to just pay off all your student loans since you already have the money? So we don't have the money anymore. We had to use that cash from the sale of our home to get into our new home because the real estate market is absolutely bonkers. And yeah, so we have a cash emergency fund, but beyond that, all the cash is in the house now. I told people they could ask questions about debt in general or about our debt payoffs. So these questions are about like debt and finances in general. How do you deal with the back and forth of wanting to save, invest, and pay off your school debt? This is a tough one. We've gone through different phases. So year 1 of our debt-free journey, we only paid off debt. Year 2, we invested and paid off debt at the same time. And year 3, we did the same. And yeah, basically every year since then, we did the same. So with school debt, if you have federal student loans, I would say again, like, contact student loan planner, make sure you are maximizing what you can do, because like, for example, if you contribute pre-tax to a 401k through an employer, then when your income is calculated for those income-based repayment plans, your income is lower because you are contributing to retirement, so your student loan payment is less. And these are like these loopholes and tricks that I wish I had understood and like taken the time and had the emotional and mental bandwidth to look at and had an expert that could like walk me through it. So when it comes to student loans, like what to do with those if they're federal, that is a complicated question that I can't answer. But when it comes to high interest debt or investing, definitely I would say pay off credit cards, anything like with an interest rate of like 8% or higher, pay that off like ASAP, and then you can invest over paying off low interest debt. That's what we're doing, especially if you're older. And I'm not like older, like I'm in my 30s still, but you know what I mean? Like if you're close to 40 or above and you have low interest debt, I would definitely focus on investing over paying off debt, because that time in the market is so important for your money to compound for investing. How do you budget spending money for each person in your family, or like going out money for the family? So we each get $150 a month for spending, and then we have a like family activities sinking fund, and we pay for it out of there, and we just contribute every single month to those funds and then spend as we need it. I talk about it in my budget like breakdowns every month. Twice a month I post budget videos, a budget with me, and a budget recap. So see those if you want to see exactly how we do it. Thoughts about paying off mortgage early at 2.49% interest versus minimum payments and more investing. Girl, 2.49% interest on your mortgage. Congrats to you. That is like hitting the lottery, I think. Like looking back, people will realize how good of an interest rate on a mortgage that is. What the money guys say is if you're under 50, it doesn't make sense to pay off your mortgage early. It makes more sense to invest. If you're 50 or older, then you can start thinking about that. So assuming you're under 50, I would just invest, especially with a mortgage interest rate of 2.49%. You can make a return of 7, 8, maybe even 10% on your money if you invest it in the stock market. So that's what I would do. I would just pay the minimum on that mortgage and focus only on investing. And last question, how do you feel overall with where you guys are at? All right, so I have mixed feelings because we've hit a bunch of our goals, but we're falling short on a very important one. So we've paid off a lot of our debt. Amazing. We have figured out where we want to be when my daughter starts kindergarten. That was something that was very much keeping me up at night. Amazing. Glad we did that. We're in our home. It's awesome. This home is very expensive because of when we bought, and so it is not allowing us to invest the percent of our income that I want to be investing at 37 years old. So we need to increase our income. I wish I could talk more about this. There's certain stuff I just can't share. But I will say that YouTube as a business is very challenging, and it's not as easy to make money the last couple of years as it was like when I quit my job. Also, my husband works in tech. It's a very layoff prone industry the last few years. So thankfully he hasn't been subject to layoffs, but his bargaining power, salary wise and things, is not what we thought it was going to be when I quit my job. And part of what makes this hard and why I have so many regrets about the student loans is if we hadn't refinanced and I was on an income-based payment, my payment would be so small because my income is small, right? And so that windfall that we had could have been allocated differently, and the whole situation would be different. So these decisions you make at one point in your life financially have ripple effects forward into your life. And I'm just someone who is so hard on myself that like I have a lot of trouble of letting go of imperfect decisions or mistakes that I've made in the past, or just decisions I made that I did the best with the information I had at the time, but like looking back would do something different now. Like I have a major issue with letting go of that stuff. So I want to say like I'm totally elated that we are where we're at, but I still feel stressed about money in a way that I don't want to feel stressed. Over the summer in the apartment, I didn't. I felt amazing. We had more than enough money to pay off our debt. We were investing what I wanted to invest. Our rent was high, but not as high as our mortgage. And like I was really happy, and then we started noticing that apartment complex was not safe, and it was such a bummer because I just really felt like this was gonna be the moment when our lives got easier financially finally, and it just didn't turn out that way. So I'm glad we're in the house we're at now and everything is safe and like secure for my family. And like this is part of why I haven't filmed as many videos lately, is because I don't want to come on here and be negative, and like these are my choices. These are like, we could have not bought this house, we could have moved somewhere cheaper, we could have done different things. So I don't want to say that like I'm upset at anyone else but myself for these decisions, but like we are trying to balance a lot of different factors with every decision we make, and a lot of which are personal things which I don't talk about in my videos. So I want to just be like, come on here and say I'm so happy with everything we've done and like everything's amazing and this and that, but we're still in the thick of it, honestly. Like we're still in the thick of the repercussions of these decisions, of being totally broke all of my 20s, exacerbating it through drug addiction, not investing for the first time till we were really well into our 30s. And at that point we already were like starting to have kids. Like it wasn't ideal. And I know at the end of the day, when we're older, we'll have enough money. Like, I know that, but it's hard to be in the thick of it right now. The money guys call it the messy middle. It's messy. It's real messy, and I'm still questioning our decisions at every turn. Like, are we doing the right thing for our family? Is this what's best for our kids? Is this what's best for me, for my mental health? The economy's rough right now. Like, I know they say there's lots of jobs out there, but you guys have seen, like, layoffs left and right, mass layoffs left and right in a lot of companies. And I really never, ever, ever want to go back to my career if I don't have to. And I don't know that I could emotionally handle it at this point after everything we went through. So that's how I'm feeling. I want to be happy in these videos. I want to be excited, but it's just, like I said, we're in the messy middle. It's fucking messy. It's real messy, guys. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this video didn't bum you out. I have to be fucking real with you guys. Like, I can't just come on here and be like, yeah, I'm so excited, we've done so well, everything's perfect, like, amazing. That's just not the reality. And I know we are so lucky and fortunate compared to so many people, but that doesn't negate my own feelings about my life and that it is a stressful situation. So thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, as always, give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from me talking about money and budgeting and debt payoff and real life, then hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and I'll see you guys soon in the next video. Bye.